Someone took his parking space, so he decided to do this.
But before we start, please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and smash that like button. We really appreciate your continuous support.
He couldn't believe the stranger who kept blocking his car as he walked towards it. He notified the driver, but the vehicle remained. As a result, he knew what to do when something inside him inevitably cracked. This stranger will come to regret crossing him that day. It's no surprise that everybody was laughing by the end of this man's tale because the way he solved his dilemma was so amusing. A Redditor named Angry Aussie Gamer, who didn't reveal his real name, posted the story on Reddit. The inconsiderate driver will soon get what he deserved after several warnings. He messed with a resourceful man. We've all seen rude drivers in traffic, and the majority of them ruined our days, sped away, and refused to listen to reason. This time, though, the Redditor had a chance to ensure the jerk didn't cross him again. His solution to the dilemma was so amusing that his story went viral. Since the Redditor's a mechanic, his story's particularly amusing. He was fascinated by automobiles and was always willing to tinker with them. His mood quickly deteriorated as he prepared to go to work one morning. He was being obstructed by a new vehicle. He only assumed the driver would come and move the car when he went to drop something off quickly. The owner of the car had clearly left it there for the whole day. As Howard passed an Angry Aussie, had no choice but to call a taxi. As he left a note in the guy's windshield, he reasoned it might have been a misunderstanding. He soon discovered the stranger's a complete jerk. The stranger's car blocked his car every day for the next week, causing Angry Aussie to have difficulty driving his own car. He decided it was time to act after a series of polite notes went unanswered. If the guy refused to change his bad habit, he'd have to learn a lesson. Angry Aussie lives in an apartment block with an underground parking lot, meaning there were a lot of people living in the block and he had no idea whose car it was. Each apartment, however, has 2 parking spaces, one of which is now occupied by the stranger's car. Every apartment you see needed 2 parking bays in order to accommodate the cars. This enabled owners to organize so that no cars were parked against the wall and trapped. However, after all the messages he'd received in the windshield so far, the driver who'd parked him in was extremely rude. So how'd the Redditor come up with a solution? Only look at what he did when anger got the best of him. Angry Aussie had had enough. He'd been parked in for far too long and being polite hadn't solved anything. Things quickly escalated and the mechanic implemented a scheme on a Saturday afternoon. He noticed the car was blocking him again as he walked to his car that weekend to go on a trip with his friends. He explained the situation to the building manager but was told nothing could be done. As Angry Aussie became increasingly enraged, he called a towing company who told him they couldn't help because the parking spot was on the 3rd floor and they had a height limit. So with no one to assist him, the mechanic had to come up with a new approach where he'd never get to drive his own car again. He felt compelled to take matters into his own hands, so he devised a scheme that made him laugh out loud. As his rage subsided, he realized his plan was genius, so he called his friends and took pictures of it. This is hilarious. Imagine a group of men surrounding your vehicle, each wielding a strange metal contraption, and you know things are gonna go smoothly. Angry Aussie, on the other hand, wasn't gonna be the antagonist. They planned to use the vehicle positioning jacks for this. As a result, the mechanic and his friends struggled to secure a vehicle positioning jack to each of the car's wheels and started driving. The hydraulics did most of the work and the car had been raised, so the man turned it around to face the opposite way, but that was just the start. Angry Aussie, you see, didn't just want to move the car so he'd actually drive his own. He intended to park it on the opposite side of the lot. There was no parking bay there, just a load-bearing beam with a narrow gap behind it, so they did their best to cram the car in. Angry Aussie was overjoyed that he was able to exact his vengeance. He wrote on Reddit, "Good luck finding your car," as he showed us these incredible images. Finally, he could rest easy knowing he'd taught that stranger a valuable lesson. He'd now unwind with his buddies on their weekend getaway, but wait until you see the next picture. When the rude driver of that car discovered his vehicle had been lost, what did he do? We couldn't stop laughing when Angry Aussie posted an update. The car seemed to be still there after returning from his journey, but the wheels seemed to have been turned, so how did things go from there? Being in such a tight place, it was a bit impossible to get out without angling the car back and forth a staggering number of times. The man knew what it was like to have his car trapped, and the rude owner of the car did manage to leave the location after a day or 2. The good news is that it never did park in a way that would trap this brilliant car mechanic again. That day, the obnoxious driver learned a valuable lesson. After a lot of notes in the joke, he finally got the message. We can all agree Angry Aussie had a brilliant idea, and others praised him for it as soon as he posted the story on Reddit. His story went viral for obvious reasons. His vengeance scheme was flawless, and we can all believe that the driver deserved everything that happened. Angry Aussie's problem-solving abilities were praised by all Reddit users who read his post, and his story went viral in the pro-revenge thread. Of course, when you park someone in or simply occupy someone's driveway, you get what you deserve. When they saw how he pulled off the prank, people all over the world laughed. The story's clever execution was what made it funny, but Redditors still had a few questions. Angry Aussie gamers started getting questions about his legal right to drive someone's car. Is it possible he'd be charged with theft? The Redditor explained that, "My research shows the only way I could be charged is if I'd illegally gained access inside the vehicle." The Redditor went on to say he didn't relocate the car with the intention of selling, lending, or gifting the vehicle to someone else. Furthermore, according to the mechanic, the car was still in the parking lot despite the fact that he'd only pushed it to get his car out of the place. The issue gets more murky if I moved it off the property, but as it is, I simply gain access to my vehicle, he added. So in a nutshell, he wasn't even an outlaw. There's no doubt that we all hate people who'd park in places they shouldn't, especially if the parking place is reserved for work.